Hello, ngHouston. So this is the second episode of our Wednesday doubleheader. We started off the morning with John Rista, and now we're coming in with Preston Lamb. This is going to be a really great episode. But before we get to Preston, I want to introduce our panelists, which you may know from 5 minutes ago because we brought our panelists with us. So John was in the hot seat, and John, now you get to be a panelist. So you get to just like relax and let Preston do all the work.
Yeah, exactly. Off.
Yeah, so you want to just introduce yourself for anyone who's jumping in that did not see the last episode? Anyone who saw the last episode, obviously they know who you are already. But
Sure. So hi, my name is John Rista. I work as a senior software engineer and architect at Breedbug Software, and I'm just here today to have some fun.
All right. And Kyler, how you doing, Kyler?
I'm doing well. I'm Kyler Johnson. I work as a senior software engineer for Bullhorn, and super excited to be here as always.
All right, and let's get to Preston. Preston Lamb.
Hey, how's everyone doing? My name's Preston. I'm a software developer in Salt Lake City, Utah, and specialize in Angular and Node, so I'm excited to be here. I was on ngHouston about 6 months ago, maybe, so I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, but I was bummed because I was out of town, and Keith had to host for me. He had to cover for me, so I wasn't even. I booked you on ngHouston, and I wasn't there for your episode, and I was really upset about that. And also, I saw you had a kind of a big announcement on Twitter. Was that today or yesterday?
Oh yeah, yesterday. Yep. So my wife is pregnant, and so it's our fourth child. We found out yesterday that it's going to be a little girl. So we have. Our oldest is a girl, and then we have two boys. So they're all pretty excited about it being a girl, but our oldest is especially excited that it's going to be a girl. So yeah, we're excited.
That's going to be so much fun. And you and your wife are both. She's so gorgeous. You guys make the most beautiful children.
Well,
thank you like I saw the picture on Twitter. You have the most beautiful kids.
Oh yeah. Well, they luckily take after their mom, so so yeah.
She's beautiful too. Okay, so enough about that. Tell us about your other child. What's the deal with this ngx-plug-n-play? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so let me go ahead and share these screens that I have here, or these slides, I guess I should say. Okay, so yeah, so probably about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, I was thinking about well, I needed to use a component library for work, and there's so many options out there, and they're all really good, and they all have so many great features with them, but like you have to agree to use their styles and their designs and everything that they they make a lot of the decisions for you, which a lot of times is fine, but sometimes your application's designs don't fall in line with what that component library has decided. And so I was thinking about that, and I was like, there's got to be something out there that has all these components that I need, but that will let me make all the UI decisions. And I couldn't really find anything. So I was like, well, I'll just try and make it on my own then. And it kind of sat quietly for a little bit. And then I finally had some time to work on it. And so I have a couple components and services and stuff that I have in the library now, and we'll go over those. But basically, this ngx-plug-n-play library is a library with components, directives, services, etc. They'll be easy to implement, and they'll give the developer full control over the UI, but will give them functionality that they're looking for. And to do this, it'll make heavy use of content projection and directives. And so that's my goal for all of the components or all of the functionality. If we add a new module, it'll be using either content projection in a component or a directive. So for those of you who don't know what content projection is, basically it allows you to pass in HTML to an Angular component and add that in or onto the screen. And so this example here that I have this picture, it's kind of a basic example. Maybe you have a page header component that you'll put at the top of each of your routes in your Angular app. But sometimes maybe you want just a plain H1, And sometimes you want like a, I don't know, big header image with the H1. And you could put a whole bunch of different inputs in there and stuff like that. But I think a lot of times it's easier just to allow you to put a tag in like this H1, and you can, in the page header component, specify where that HTML will be output. And then the page header component might do some other things, but you can pass in that HTML. So that's what content projection is. I don't see it used a ton when I've been looking around, but I think it's a really powerful piece of Angular that people maybe don't know about and could use a little bit more. And it's a little bit overwhelming at first, but once I've jumped in and really started to use it, it's been pretty easy to grasp as I've worked on it.
I really agree with you, because content projection is so powerful. But the tutorials, like there are some tutorials on Angular in depth about really advanced DOM manipulation, but they're kind of complex. And so I think the content projection, like, it doesn't really feel like it's for beginners. Not necessarily because it's not. I mean, it should be for beginners, right? But I think I never really learned it or I didn't learn it for a long time because there aren't a lot of beginner level tutorials out there that cover it.
Right.
There should be, but hopefully it's good that you're talking about this.
It's great.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't find a lot of beginner stuff either. I do have a couple links to some articles that I found on the internet that I'll share later. But yeah, it's definitely not written about, I think, as much for at a beginner level. And I kind of want to change that. I want people to not be afraid when they hear, hey, this is content projection. I don't want people to be like, oh, well, that's overwhelming, that's scary. So hopefully, if we talk about it a little bit more, people will first know what that means and what it is, and then won't be afraid to use it.
Absolutely.
So so that's content projection. And then directives, I just wanted to go over those real briefly. There's 3 types of directives in Angular. Components, everybody knows what components are, but they're really just directives with a template. And then you have attribute directives, and they change the appearance or behavior of another component or an HTML element or something like that. And then a structural directive, which actually changes the DOM by adding or removing other DOM elements. So those are the 3 types of directives that are in Angular. And so far, I've just been using attribute directives. They just kind of change the appearance or the behavior of whatever element that the directive is added to. So I kind of talked about this before, but why I made it, like I said, I was looking for component libraries and I found a lot, but I had to hope that whatever component I was looking for would match the design of my project, or at least does that match it close enough that I could use it. And that was kind of hard, but I really wanted to be able to just say, well, I want to type ahead. That's one of the modules in this library. I want to be able to use a type ahead, but I want to be able to pass or to use whatever input I want and the styles that I want and stuff like that. And so I made this so that myself and others, we could solve this same problem. And I just wanted to point out that this doesn't mean that you shouldn't use other options. I don't want anyone to think that I'm bashing on any other component library. I've used lots of them and they're all great. This is just one more option that might give you a little bit more control over how the components look when they're implemented. So we'll come back to these links in just a second. So far there are 2 modules in the library. There's a type ahead module and like an alerts toaster module. So the type ahead, it has an input directive that essentially it just sets up an observable on the input that you add it to, and as the user types in it, it has a debounce time and it emits that value every 300 milliseconds, 500 milliseconds, however often you want it to emit, and it'll emit that value, and then you can take that value and run it through a service to do a search. or if you have all the results already in the application. If it doesn't have to like hit an API endpoint to search, then you could use that value. And then the result directive, which you can add to the results, and it will take whatever matching term that you want, which would be emitted from the input, and then it will mark with a strong tag the parts of the string that match that result. And I'll show you that. And you can have it be case sensitive or case insensitive. So here's just a quick little GIF. You can see as they type, it will match the parts of the results that you type in there. So let's go back to here to Stack Blitz, and we will look at another demo. Oh, apparently my Stack Blitz is broken. That's okay, we'll go to here. So this is just ngx-plug-n-play.netlify.com. You can come here and play with these. So on the type ahead demo, it has kind of basically the README of how to use it, but at the top is a little demo. So I can type in and then it emits that value, and you can do multiple words and it'll match those. So it emits that value that you type in there every so often, however much the debounce time that you set. It defaults to 500 milliseconds. I think this hasn't been updated down here, but it defaults to 500 milliseconds. But you can pass in a different debounce time if you want it to be shorter or longer than that. So that's really all it is. It's really simple, but it takes away the pain of having to set up that observable for the typing input and all of that for you. You just add this PNP type ahead input directive to an input, and that's all you have to do. And oh, you have to do like the I'll show the code in Stack Blitz, even though apparently the Stack Blitz is broken. But in my type ahead demo here in the HTML, I just have an input there. That's a little small. Let's try making it a little bigger. I have the input element here. I have the directive added to it, and then a value changed event. And that's what will be emitted on the debounce time. And I mean, that's all it takes. And then on the result, you have the PNP type ahead result directive and a match term input. And so I wanted to make it as simple as possible. And then because they're just directives, right on these demo sites, I'm using Bootstrap for it, but you could use Angular material, you could use your own designs, you could use whatever you wanted, and you can style the inputs and the results however you want, and it's going to, the only thing that it does really is on the results, it adds a strong tag around the matching text. So that's pretty much it.
Preston, I have a quick question. What would it take to kind of have the input have sort of like a drop-down behavior for the results instead of embedded in a page? Is that possible?
Yeah, so I'm actually using this on a project at work. And so basically what I'm doing at work is the input is in a div with a position relative. I wish my Stack Blitz was working. I thought it was. But I put the input in a div, and that div has position relative on it. And then the results are positioned to absolute inside that same div. And then as I type, it's going to make a call to a server, and then bring those results from the search back in an observable, and we'll list them out just with an ng4. And then, but still on those results, I still have the directive and the match term, and then it still works with the ng4 is the same. And so you can have them be embedded like this. You can do whatever you want. You can style them however you want. You can, like I said, you can position them absolutely so that it's right under the search input and it looks like it just pops up from the bottom. It could be, I mean, anything that you want it to. And that was the whole point, is I didn't want to make any decisions at all about how it showed up or where the results showed up or anything. Just here's a simple way to mark the because a lot of times people want the part of the result that matches to be highlighted or something. And so I wanted them to be able to do that. They can turn it off, or, I mean, if you turn that part off, you might as well not use the directive because that's basically all it does, but you could turn it off. And so, yeah, so anything that you want to do, you just do that part with CSS. So
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So that's pretty much it. There's just a couple things with the type of head input that I did make a decision on, and that is that it ignores arrow up, arrow down, escape, and enter keyboard events, because in some cases, you know, like maybe outside of this directive, you want to use the arrow up and the arrow down keys to like toggle through the results. And so right now that's outside of this module. And so it ignores those when you're focused in the input so that you can handle those keyboard up and down events. And then escape, it doesn't emit, but it blurs the input like kind of you would expect it to. And then enter, it ignores that from outputting, because again, when they hit enter, you might have a keyboard up.enter event on the input to do the search. And so I didn't want the directive to output an event when you hit enter in case you wanted to do something. But other than that, the developer has complete control over every other decision. So those are the 4 keys right now that will not input or output a new value when you hit them and you're focused on the input. So that's the type of head. The other module that's in there right now is an alert toaster. And I've done this on several different applications, so I figured I might as well move it in here. And again, give the developer the tool, and then they can decide how those alerts look on the page. So it just consists of 2 parts: a service where you can add alerts and remove alerts, and then a display component that you can add anywhere on your page, and that will loop over the items and subscribes to the subject from the service to list them out. And that's pretty much it. It'll just add and remove alerts to a list for you. So here's a little GIF. You can click on those buttons and they add the test alerts, and then you can remove them. So again, nothing real fancy here, but it'll let you do that. So if we go look at the demo here, again, just as a side note, for the demo, I'm using Bootstrap alerts, but you could use whatever you wanted and you could design them however you wanted. And these ones kind of show up as display block, and so they push everything down, but maybe you want it to be at the root of your application and positioned absolute, and so they just kind of overlay as the alerts come in, or maybe you want them down here in the corner of the screen or in the top right of the screen or whatever, or you want to add animations to them. You can do all that. All this does is provide a service that you can inject anywhere in your application. And then when something happens, you can add an alert to the list or remove it when they click on it. And so I can add multiple alerts here, and then I can remove them. And so if we look at the code again over here in StackBlitz for this demo, as far as the HTML goes, I put the PnP alerts display component here in the HTML, and then it's a little bit different than the other one because this time we're using content projection or template refs with the ng template tag here. But you add an ng template tag and then this let alert, and the let I equals index. And that's because inside the component, inside the PNP alerts display component, it's doing the ng4 for us. And so it'll give us this alert variable so that we can output each one. And then the let I equals index gives you the index so that you can remove it. And then you can add, so these classes here are for Bootstrap. So on my, let me show the TypeScript here. On mine, I just have a message and a level of, I think, success, warning, and danger, because that's what Bootstrap wants. And so Bootstrap needs a class of alert, and then alert success or alert warning or alert danger or whatever. And then I put the message out right there, and then provide a button that you can click to remove it. And so that's pretty standard with Bootstrap, but you could provide whatever you want in there. And the service allows you it has an interface for the alerts, but you can put whatever values you need to on the alert. So if message and level doesn't make sense for your application, then you can put whatever you want on there. But message and level seem to be pretty common for alerts. And so that's why those are kind of, those are there by default, but they're optional, so you don't have to use them. And so you could put, I've used like an automatic dismissal time on there before. So after 10 seconds, it'll automatically go away. Or maybe you want a flag to say if it's dismissible or not, and you can add that on the alert. But again, the developer who's implementing it has full control over that. Basically, all this does is allow them to, in the class or the component or another service, inject this alert toaster service, add an alert or remove it, and then they can take the this part and they can put it wherever they want. If they want them to be global throughout the whole application, or if they just wanted it to be in a single component. So it's not real complicated, but it gives the implementing developer full control over that. So any questions about that one?
No, not so far.
Okay. So far, that's all that's in the library. I'm working right now on a drop-down component and module, so that you can have a drop-down trigger and then the drop-down results and some of that stuff. It's a little bit more tricky to still give them 100% control over the UI and stuff, but I'm working on that one right now. But if you want to contribute, I'd love to have you contribute. Wes Grimes, who was gonna join today, but he had something come up. He's already helped me out a little bit with the demo site on Netlify, and so submit issues if you find one. Hopefully, there's no issues right now that's stopping people from using it. But if you do, please submit issues. Submit issues if you have ideas for other services or components or directives or whatever. You can help me write tests. You can write docs if you want, and then also just spreading the word about it and letting people know that it's out there. And then here's just a few links like I mentioned before. The first one is a blog post that I wrote a while back about using template refs, which is that ng template tag. It's very much like content projection. The second one is a link to these slides. And then the last one is a Medium link. Isaac Mann, he works for Narwhal. He wrote a whole bunch of articles on content projection and template refs and ng template and all that stuff that I read a while back, and that really helped me to understand what I was doing and what was going on. And so those are a few links if you would like to learn more. And also, if you'd like to learn more, reach out to me. I'd love to help. My contact information is right here. I'd love to help. I'd love to answer any questions. And then you can also just go dive into the source code for the library and look and see how we're implementing it. And hopefully that'll help as well for people to figure out how to use content projection and directives and stuff like that.
And if I can just add something, because I know we have a lot of beginners that watch this show. If you think maybe, Preston said, if you want to contribute to this, if you have any ideas or if you want to see something changed or added to this library, if you've never done any kind of open source contributions, please reach out to Preston on Twitter, because he is the nicest guy in the world and he will not be mean to you. I promise. He's really nice. And so even if you've never done that before, if you have an idea or if you have something that you want to see, just, reach out and talk to Preston, because he's super nice and he will not bite you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have very little experience really in open source work. Like I've done a little bit, but I don't have a ton. And so if you have never done it before, but you want to get involved, please reach out. I'd love to help so that you can also get into open source work. It's pretty fun to see other people using your project or using your work and stuff. So like Bonnie said, if you want to get involved, please reach out.
I think you and John Rista should trade, because he just released an open source library and you just released an open source library, and you guys should be each other's beta testers.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, I want to kind of integrate our library with other frameworks, and one of those is, automatic toasts and alerts. So this kind of seems like the perfect integration.
Yeah, for sure.
And it all started here. Hey, Preston, turn off your screen share so we can see you for a second.
Okay, there we are.
See, y'all, he looks like a nice guy. He's a super nice guy. You guys are all nice guys. Okay, and so that goes for you too, John. If somebody wants to use your library and they kind of have feedback, it's okay for them to reach out to you, and you guys are
absolutely
not.
Yeah.
I was
really.
Add
John Rista Dev on Twitter. I'm kind of new to Twitter, but I'm there.
You wouldn't know it. You just jumped right into the deep end. As soon as you got a Twitter account and you started tweeting, you were like, oh yeah. This is easy.
Wow.
Okay, so
gotta get out there for people to see anything. So.
Well, now it's too late now. It's like they already know you, so you might as well just go ahead and get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that wraps up our ngHouston doubleheader, and so I really appreciate you guys both sharing libraries. Really, that's it. I actually have something that I've been wanting to turn into a library, and I haven't gotten around to it. I haven't tried, but I should probably do that. So maybe one of these days, reach out, and either one of you can help. And also, while we're on that, if you have something that you want to turn into a library, I really recommend that you reaching out to these guys and ask them, because they'll probably help you, because that's one thing about the Angular community. It's really wonderful and lovely. And one more question before we go, but this one's not for you, Preston. This one's for Kyler. Kyler, when are you going to come on ngHouston and show us something? Because now's the time. This is like your second or third time as a panelist, and we need to put you in the hot seat. Preston, John, tell him how easy it is.
It's not as hard as it seems, to be perfectly honest. I'm not a big fan of a stage, but the nice thing about Houston is it's not really a stage. It's different.
Yeah, we're super chill here. It's like nobody's even watching. They can't even see it. It's fun. Well, they're watching. Don't think about that, right? Kyler, are you getting tempted?
I am very tempted. In fact, I am definitely planning to do it. I'm just trying to find the time with the newborn and all that. So hopefully when she starts sleeping better, things will calm down. And yeah, I'd absolutely love to.
All right, I'll tell you what, just as a baby step, I'm going to send you the link to the calendar, and you can pick a date, and then you can start procrastinating from there.
Okay, sounds great.
This is how it starts. This is just how it starts.
I know. See, John knows, because he went through this, and I did this to him. So yeah, sorry, not sorry. All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming on the show, and hopefully we will see all three of you back soon and often.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Bye.
See ya.